Hey everybody, what's going on? This is George Herrera. Welcome back to Real Talk with QHT. I'm here with my fellow team members, Daniel Ackerman, and my other team member, Dwayne Egid.
What's up, everybody?
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hope everybody's doing well. So right now it's September 3rd, right?
That is correct.
So we're in the beginning of September, and today on this episode, we're talking about negotiating in Queens. And so we figured there's a lot of stuff going on right now. We're all negotiating different deals. And so we figured let's talk about something that might help educate the buyers and sellers out there to understand specifically to Queens, the type of negotiating tactics that we use and people use. So we all brought some stories, and hopefully you guys will take something away from it. So who wants to kick it off? Who wants to go first and drop some jewels?
Let's slow things down for just a minute here.
Oh, you want? Okay,
Yeah,
okay. We're gonna
just
ease
rewind it.
in.
Generally, I use a club.
That's great. That's good negotiating.
good.
tactics.
Negotiating
Yes.
skills.
No, but let's check in with everybody. How are we all doing?
Oh yeah, good one. My wife's birthday's tomorrow, so you know. that means
Abigail
I gotta-
Herrera turning 25?
26 again?
26? Yeah. Perpetual.
For the 13th time.
All right,
No,
but that's
so
your
I'm good.
wife. How you doing?
No, I'm good. Been working out.
We saw that.
taking
Check out
walks.
George's Facebook feed, everybody.
Oh yeah, log in there. You know, I've always hit it. 50 push-ups. But I'm good. How about
Good.
you? How about you guys? How you doing?
I'm swell. You know, I went to the office today, which was good.
Oh,
Yeah, it was fun. And Paula and I are going to be taking off next week. So that'll be really nice.
that's fun. Where are you going?
All over.
Oh,
No, like
that's a big
every
thing.
morning we get in the car, we're going somewhere, come back the next day. Or come back that day.
The Star Trek tour of the universe. That's
Yeah.
that's fun, man. What about you, Dan? What's going on?
I'm good, man. I'm a little sore today.
Okay.
Should I tell everybody why?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a thing on the team where we're trying to hold everybody, all of ourselves, accountable to our goals. Because we've been talking a lot about that, and high-performing people hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Right? And hold themselves accountable. So I did not reach my goals, my targets last week, and the things that I was supposed to do. So my penalty to keep me accountable was to run 2 miles, do 100 jumping jacks, and a 2-minute plank. I thought, that's no problem. I'll be able to do it. No big deal. I used to run cross country in high school, so I thought 2 miles, no problem. I did 1 lap of the track before I was like, oh man,
Only 7 more to go.
this is gonna suck.
Oh gosh.
So I ended up doing my 2 miles. I pushed through.
Yeah.
I didn't do it running the whole time. There was just
Okay.
no way. But I did my 2 miles, and then I did my 100 jumping jacks. That was okay. And then I tried to do my 2-minute plank, and I could only do a minute at a time. And then I did like 30 seconds.
That plank is no joke,
It's
right?
no joke. It
Do you know what
looks
though?
Dude.
Like because of my girth, I have to I was only needing to do a 1-minute plank, and I thought
Yeah.
that would be sufficient. But I think I'm gonna have to do a 2-minute plank. It was kind of easy.
Yeah, I think 2 is the one. Two is tough.
Yeah, it was.
One you can do.
The one
yeah,
was-
we'll have
one
to
was too
we'll have to
easy.
verify your form on that, Dwayne, because you're probably one of these planks where your butt's
Oh
high
hell's
up in the
no,
air.
man! Hell's no!
No
I
knees
suck
on
in
the
the
ground.
butt cheeks.
Yeah.
I suck in the stomach.
Yeah. So
You
anyway,
could eat a sandwich off my back.
but yeah, I'm sore today. I'm feeling
Nice.
it, but I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah,
thank
so
all you guys.
extreme too. I mean, we just jumping jacks or push-ups. Daniel has to throw in 2 miles.
Yeah, that was-
walk, have to carry groceries for 10 blocks.
I mean, the idea was that the penalty had to hurt. So
Yeah.
if I was just going to do 20 jumping jacks, I'll do that any day, no problem.
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I'm hurting today.
Yeah, no,
For sure.
running is. I think I'm allergic.
Oh man, it's tough. I mean, you guys know I ride my bike a lot. Like 11 miles on the bike, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Running 1 mile.
I
I was
love
like,
riding a
"Holy
bike."
Cow.
Yeah, stationary even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's fun.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like riding bikes.
That's true, man. That's true.
All right.
So
well,
that's
good to hear everybody's doing good.
Yes.
So, who wants to jump in with the first negotiation story?
I guess it'll be me.
Since we're all looking
Why
Yeah.
not? D Weezy.
I have a few here that we were we were talking about earlier, and I think the one I'm going to go with is I had an overseas buyer from Dubai coming in, and he wanted to buy a condo. So I took him out, showed him a bunch of condos out in Long Island City, and was a for sale by owner.
Oh, yeah.
That we had, which is always fun
Yeah.
because you're dealing directly with,
And they have no
seller.
representation.
No representation,
Mm-hmm,
and have very limited ideas of what should go on.
That's true.
So we were getting down. He made an offer on it. Then the negotiation started, and we were really, like, I think we were somewhere around 40,000.
So what was the asking price, and what was the initial offer?
Oh, geez, I don't remember. The asking price, I think, was 1.6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we came in at 1.3 and change.
Okay, and this is in Long Island City.
Long Island
condo.
City. Two-bedroom condo, incredible view.
And this is when Long Island City was really, I mean, it still is, but this is when it was all booming. Everything
yeah.
big time. It was
Yeah.
seller's market.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we were like 40 grand apart. And I got him closer, and I got him closer, and everybody was just, inching their way toward the middle. And we were at 15,000 difference, and neither of them were going to budge anymore. So I did not want to lose the deal.
Yeah.
It was
We're so close.
a $1 million plus deal.
Yeah.
My first one. And so since I was the only agent, and I was getting all the commission, and it was substantial. Then I said, look, we're 15,000 apart. What if you, Miss Seller,
Uh-huh.
put in 5,000, and you, Mr. Buyer, put in 5,000, and I'll give 5,000 out of my commission
Yeah.
so we can make this happen. And they went for it, and we closed.
Great.
It was a cash deal, so we closed quick.
Nice.
Which was nice, yeah.
And that goes to the point of the win-win agreement. A good negotiation is always a win-win, right?
Right,
That's
right.
like the best explanation of everybody coming to agreement to make it happen. But that takes creativity. And sometimes if you had, let's say, the buyer dealing directly with the seller, or an agent who doesn't get creative, the deals die sometimes because nobody comes up with a creative solution.
There was one other aspect to this which was kind of fun, and it was basically a lease back to the seller,
Oh, nice.
or to the
Oh.
yeah. So they didn't have to move out. They wanted their kids to finish the school year.
Okay.
So we worked that out
Okay.
of the price as well, since they were staying and they were going to be paying him.
Yeah.
So we were able to I was able to get the price down a little bit for
Yeah.
the buyer,
Yeah.
but he was still making all of his money because
Yep.
he had an automatic tenant.
Yeah, and that's when it is for sale by owner, us as brokers, we can kind of take advantage of that because they don't have as much competition as if they were on the market, and because they aren't as savvy, we are able to get in some terms that benefit the buyer.
Oh yeah, and their lease back was included in my commission.
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
that's perfect, dude. That's
I
good.
mean, this example just brings up so many things that I have been wanting to talk about for this podcast today. Because one of those things is, first of all, and you said it right at the beginning, when you said that the seller had a limited idea of what could actually be talked about, and I think that that's a really important thing to bring across, is that negotiations, I mean, first of all, what do people think of in terms of negotiations in regards to real estate? They think it's just about the money, the price, a lot of times.
Totally.
And I mean, at its most basic, a negotiation of any kind is just you trying to get something that you want. right? Whatever that thing may be.
Yep.
You know, so if you're a seller, you're trying to sell your place. If you're a buyer, you're trying to buy a place. If you're a kid, you're trying to get your parent to buy you that ice cream cone.
Yes.
You know, those are all negotiations. And I think sometimes we forget that negotiation is more than just one specific little thing. It's getting what we want.
Yeah.
And with this sale, I mean, there's so many good examples there because the deal was, I mean, it was largely the money, right? Because ultimately, you guys all had to chip in $5,000 for your commission. I mean, that was creative thinking, but that whole leaseback thing, like that's terms right
Yeah.
there. And you know, disagreement on deals is in the price,
Yes.
and deals are made on the terms.
Sure.
And I
Many
think that's
times.
so important for buyers and sellers to recognize is
That's
that.
true.
And having somebody who knows the process well enough and has the knowledge of what terms are available and where the levers are that you can pull.
Yeah.
I mean, that's worth its weight in gold because, you know, you can, I mean, I'm going to bring up my own examples, but I mean, you can really make a difference.
Yeah, and that only comes with experience. Unfortunately, there's no vlog that you can watch that's going to really, I mean, this kind of helps, but going through and negotiating deal after deal after deal, that's where you learn
Yeah.
all of these little
100%.
you know,
Well, I
tricks
mean,
of the
I
trade.
without trying to sound like a brown noser, I mean, I learned a lot of my negotiating skills from you, just watching what you do and how, like, you know, emails that you send and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned a lot.
Awesome. And Dwayne is a good negotiator, FYI.
He is.
All right.
I've seen it in
Remember that.
action.
So I'll piggyback on that one because I actually have one that's also a FSBO. It's an accepted offer right now, but I don't think I even told you guys this story yet. So
For sale by owner for our listeners and viewers.
yes,
FSBO.
yeah.
FSBO.
I know we got our real estate lingo here.
Also, the clown from Modern Family, he was FSBO as well.
That's true. I forgot about that.
All right, so this is last week, I think. A buyer came in through our website, our chat, queenshometeam.com. And so they came in and they said, we just saw a property and we want to make an offer. And they're smart. I mean, most people wouldn't do this, but they were looking for an agent to help them with the preparation and the negotiation of the offer. So it was a for sale by owner, got in touch with the lady. She sent me the link to the listing. I look at it. This is fully renovated, huge on an 80 by 100 lot. Oof. It is beautiful. And so I said, look, I'll help you out there. I'll send you the comps. Obviously, I'm going to be your agent. So I'll send you the comps. We'll go through them together. The list price, $799, and the highest comp in the area, $720. Okay, but the $720 was not as big, not as renovated, not even close, and it was on a 40 by 100 lot versus this 80 by
Right.
100. So, you know, I told her, yes, this is definitely can go in the 775 to 800 range, easy, because of all those additional features. So we go in and I say, all right, we're going to present the offer, present it to the owner. We started at, I think, 764, something like that. Long story short, we come to an agreement, but then the owner asks, well, part of our terms were no more showings. You're a FSBO. I don't want you. Part of our terms, you can't show this house to anybody else. And so they agree because they're for sale by owner. You know, they don't know that they can show maybe until contracts are signed. Who knows? But
Right.
we do that for the buyer. So then the owner asked us, well, can they allow us to stay in the house for, you know, a couple weeks after closing? And that's called post-close possession. And the guy's a super nice guy, the seller, by the way. So I told the buyer, you know, this is okay. What we want is for them to pay us rent every day that they're in there. So that's okay. I told them, you know, this isn't uncommon, so we can do that, but let's just tell them that you're going to have to pay rent every day that you're in there. And that's common.
It's basically a per diem, right?
A per diem, yeah. And usually the attorneys will work it out, the amount, but I just gave them a heads up and I told him that, agreed. So certain things like that you're agreeing on, but you know, you're helping whoever your client is, you're trying to get them something that's favorable to them, but they're happy with the price. They have a buyer, so we're going forward, you know. And it was like for this one, it's only 10% down, so lower down payment. So I need to make the buyer look good. So I told her, what do you do for a living? What's your income? What's your credit score? I need to present all this so that they know, even though it's a 10% down, rock solid buyer. So, right? These are like examples of things you do to try to get someone to want to agree to your terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. Before I jump in on my story, I thought one good question I could ask you guys is, since we're talking about negotiating in Queens,
Yeah.
specifically Queens, New York, let's talk a little bit for our listeners and our viewers. What is different about the Queens market that means that affects negotiations? Like, how is negotiating in Queens different than negotiating
It's
elsewhere?
the wild, wild west.
It can be. It can be.
yeah, I think one of the things is the violations, open permits. I mean, that's very Queens specific, New York City specific. You can be selling a house or buying a house with open violations, with sidewalk liens, with open permits on projects that were never finished. So those things are like, you have to negotiate for those things, and that's very New York City specific, right? What else? What do you think?
How about you, Dwayne? What do you
Tenants?
Well, I mean, I had another situation where the selling agent, I was representing the buyers, and the selling agent wasn't offering anything to a buyer.
think? So they weren't sharing the commission.
Right.
Yeah.
So no co-broke.
Right.
That's Queens.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very Queens. And that's not very common elsewhere in the country.
No, it's not.
Even in neighboring boroughs.
Yeah.
Manhattan.
Long Island, either side of us.
Yeah, either side of us, all the agents cooperate with each other. The listing agent is going to share their commission
Yes.
with the buyer's agent, and that
Evenly.
evenly. And that promotes a couple of things. It promotes professionalism, I think, between both sides.
Yep.
And it actually dovetails really, really nicely with the situation that I want to bring up,
Okay.
which was that I had to negotiate for a buyer. I was representing a buyer. I had to negotiate and know my stuff just to get my offer's buyer in front of the seller.
Just to get your buyer's offer in
Sorry,
front of the seller?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
I switched my words there. Just to get my buyer's offer
Okay.
in front of the seller. In
How,
other
how
words,
so?
Yeah.
well, I'm glad that you asked.
I'm intrigued.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know, the Queens area is part of the Long Island Board of Realtors. Okay, that governs Queens all the way out to Montauk.
Yep.
It covers that whole area. Now, if you are a member, if your brokerage is a member of the Long Island Board of Realtors, then you are subject as an agent to all of the rules of the Board of Realtors. Okay, which outlines things like cooperation and the fact that you have to share the information with everybody. You have to state the commission that you're going to share up front. It doesn't have to be 50-50, which is what we were just talking about is unique about Queens. But you have to at least state it up front. And that also ties you to certain duties. Let's say you represent the seller. It ties you to certain duties as far as presenting offers.
That's true.
Right? If somebody presents an offer, if an agent or a buyer comes to a listing agent and presents an offer, they're duty bound to present that offer to their seller within a certain amount of time. I believe it's 24 hours.
No, no.
It's less, right?
It's like 2 hours.
That's right. It's 2
Oh, yeah.
hours.
I think they
mistake.
just kind of changed
Right.
it when they did the whole one key thing.
Correct.
That's true.
And you can hold a listing agent accountable by getting, proof of presentation.
Yes.
Right. And presenting an offer binder, and then having the seller sign off on that
Yes.
to show that they've seen the offer. Okay. It doesn't mean that they have to accept the offer.
The offer acknowledgement
The
form.
offer
Yeah,
acknowledgement
so
form.
that's an
That's
offer
right.
acknowledgement.
So that all goes for members of the Long Island Board of Realtors, right?
Yep.
But what about if the seller's agent, if I'm representing a buyer and the seller's agent is not a member of the Board of Realtors? What do I have then to leverage the situation to make sure my offer gets in front of the seller? And that's the situation that I was faced with.
Yeah.
I have she's under contract now, so it worked.
That's good.
But she was making an offer on a co-op unit that she saw where the agent is a doorman in the building, does a lot of deals in the building, knows the building really well, and is kind of the gatekeeper of all of the listings there, right?
Yeah.
And he's not a member of the Board of Realtors. Now, the listing was $399,000. We were offering $390 all cash.
Okay.
So that's a strong offer.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that's pretty good.
You're only
Yeah.
$9,000 off, and it's all cash, which means you don't have to go through, financing approval, involve a bank or any of that.
Yeah.
And so I was having trouble getting verification that the offer actually went in front of the seller. He wouldn't confirm. He wouldn't say, yes, I've actually shown it to the seller. He kept saying, we have another offer at full price. I said, okay, but that isn't the question that I asked.
Did you?
What I asked was,
Yeah.
did you present the offer to the seller? Because if your seller is saying that they don't want this offer, that's one thing. But if you're saying that your seller doesn't want this offer, that's another.
Yeah.
And he danced around the issue, and finally, I'm thinking, okay, how can I force this guy's hand? So first, I mentioned Board of Realtors, right?
Okay.
And he said, "Well, I'm not a member of the Board of Realtors, so that doesn't apply to me." And I'm like, "Okay, great. So I've got to figure
Dang
something
it.
else out." Dang.
Dang it.
So then I started peppering him with questions about the other offer. You know, what is the offer? Oh, it's another seller in the building, and I have that listing.
Okay.
Aha. Okay. So he's trying to get both deals done.
Oh.
Aha.
And that was the Black Swan. There's a book called, I forget what the name of the book is, but their concept is the Black Swan is that piece of information that you needed that makes everything click.
Oh.
And that was the Black Swan for me. I realized, what's going on over there?
What,
We're hearing
Alexa?
some-
Alexa,
we're-
what are you talking
Alexa's
about?
talking to us from the background. So anyway, back to what I
Yeah.
was talking about. I realized that he was trying to get his buyer for that apartment. So basically what was happening was the guy that wanted to sell one apartment on the second floor and move into this apartment that my client was also making an offer on.
Okay.
So he wanted to get all the sides of the deal. The agent wanted to get all the sides of the deal.
Okay.
So he really wanted to prioritize getting that deal to his seller and getting that deal done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But knowing what I know as a realtor, I realized, wait a minute, he doesn't have proof of funds because the buyer has to sell his apartment first
Yes.
to have proof of funds in order to buy the apartment that we were bidding on.
Yeah, sure.
That ain't gonna work.
That
Yeah,
isn't
that's
going to
gonna be
work.
tough.
So he kept going around in circles with me and going around in circles with me. And finally I said, listen, you keep telling me that you have a full price offer, but you don't have a real offer. Your offer doesn't exist because there's no proof of funds there. You don't have that other listing under contract yet.
Sure.
So it's nothing. It's smoke. And when I said that, he said, let me call my seller. I got my buyer's offer acknowledged and accepted within 30 minutes of saying that.
So, how did you get it acknowledged without him being a member of LIBOR?
Well, he basically emailed me back and said, my seller will take your offer.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That's a pretty good
Yeah,
acknowledgement.
that's an acknowledgement.
But it took, so there I had to negotiate just to get my offer in front of the seller.
Yeah.
And that, I never would have known how to do those things
That's
had I
true.
not experienced a lot of deals already and understood what different factors can come into play and how proof of funds works, for example.
Yeah.
And where the leverage points were.
That's true.
And so I had to leverage everything I could think of.
And that's a good tip for a homeowner. If, let's say, you are selling on your own and someone makes you an offer, they're making you an offer, but at the end of the day, you need to know where's the money coming from. Whether it's a mortgage or whether it's all cash, you need to see the pre-approval. You need to see proof of funds. Many times in Queens, this money is coming from somewhere else. It's not liquid, and they just won't tell you that.
Yep.
And as soon as you start asking for documentation, they start telling you the whole spiel of I'm selling this house and I'm about to close on this one, and it's contingent, or they're doing a 1031 or something. So definitely that's why documentation is so important. Can
Yeah,
you actually
100%.
buy right now?
100%.
All right. So how about a story where you think there's some useful information for a buyer or a seller for when they're either receiving offers, negotiating, or making offers, things that maybe they might not know that they could use some info?
The one thing that I think happens the most with people who aren't represented, I think what happens the most is they end up making offers that are ridiculous
Oh, like low ball
or
or overly.
like they've seen they're at an open house, they see a bunch of people, you get multiple offers and you're like, hey, and then they're the one co-op in Jackson Heights,
Yeah.
we were listed at 650, and they came in 690.
Yeah.
You know, and then when the appraisal doesn't come in, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to pay that."
Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point. I think I'm going to talk about our current deal. That's
Yeah,
under
go ahead.
contract.
Yeah.
But I want to let you finish your story. about
No,
it.
that was basically it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, the value of representation is sometimes gets lost by some people because they just don't understand the importance of it, and they end up making mistakes.
Yeah.
The low ball is another one. They come
Yeah.
in like 100,000 short,
Yeah.
and you know, like,
And then the price might already reflect all
Yeah.
the work that's needed or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest value adds that an agent has, in my opinion, for a buyer is the comps. Because without those comps, let's say, for example, you guys know that Abby and I were looking for an investment property.
Right.
We saw a 2-family that we liked. Asking price $879. We love it. Completely renovated. When we pull the comps, the highest sale in that whole area for a completely renovated 2-family is $815. So why would I ever offer, and we already know it has to appraise and everything, without a buyer not knowing that, might offer $860, $870, and you don't even know that you're making a big mistake in terms of the price you're paying. So you're overpaying. And then if it doesn't appraise, you just wasted all that time on this deal that's probably going to die because nobody wants to budge. And
well,
nobody, you know,
I
so
tell you, the buyers got lucky because as soon as that happened, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, as I was on the phone with the other offers, like, you
Yeah.
know, like right after, and saying, "Hey, there's a possibility."
Yeah.
But the seller she
reasonable.
yeah, well, she didn't want to go start all over,
Yeah.
and she also didn't. She liked the family. You know, she didn't really know them, but she knew of them, and
Yeah.
she liked the family.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's so true, man. I mean, you could easily overpay for a property if you
Easily.
don't
I almost
have a
did it.
good agent.
I almost did it. Just
Yeah.
You know, we're buying as you know.
That's true.
So for our viewers and listeners, I'm searching for a home to purchase with my fiance, and you know, it's in a market that I don't know, so I'm relying on an agent myself.
Yeah.
And it's very, very easy to overpay. You know,
Yeah.
you got to really have your wits about you, and you really have to have good advice. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a good point.
Very true.
You know, I want to talk a little bit more about terms before I jump into the deal that I wanted to talk about, the story that I wanted
Sure.
to talk about. Because, you know, we have a thing here in Queens when you submit what's called highest and best, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? We don't talk about best and final,
No.
right? It's not best and final. It's highest and best.
Yes.
Because it's not final until...
And this is great for listeners to know when you hear best and final,
Yeah.
it actually isn't best and final.
Right.
Until.
It's highest and best.
Yeah.
Because up until a deal is closed, really,
Yep.
it's not
That's
final.
true.
But what is so highest is self-explanatory, right? Highest price, highest offer. But what does best mean,
Yeah.
right? Highest and best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the things that is really, really important, and one of the questions that I always encourage, or that I always ask when I'm representing a buyer, is talking to the listing agent and asking what besides price is important to your seller. That's the first question I try to
That's
ask.
a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
What besides price is important to your seller?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to try and get over on that person. It's to try to find out what can I offer them that's attractive to them that gets my buyer in the front of the line.
Yep.
You know, and that's a big part of negotiating,
That's
because you're negotiating not just against the seller. If you're representing the buyer in this instance, you're also negotiating against all the competing buyers.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to get your buyer out and ahead in front of the line.
Yes.
So while at the same time protecting their interests. So as long as the buyer, as long as your client is comfortable with the things that you're suggesting that they offer, knowing what is important to the seller can make the difference between getting the deal and not getting the deal. So for example, if a seller needs to, you've already brought this up, if a seller needs flexibility in terms of staying in the property for a little longer, that's something that you can throw into the deal.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to offer you full asking price, or we're going to offer you X amount of dollars, and we're flexible on the closing. We can close as slowly as you want,
Yes.
or as rapidly as you want, or you can stay in the property post-closing, or
Yep.
so all of those things all of a sudden become appealing to that seller. They may even be willing to take less money just because the terms of the deal are more favorable.
Very true.
So always something important to ask is, what is important to the buyer or the seller other than the price?
Yes.
And you also have the contingencies that you can play with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
You know,
contingencies are a big one.
you can-
Appraisal contingency, which is one I'm going to talk about regarding our
Yeah.
deal.
And
Yeah.
inspection.
Inspection contingency.
Mortgage contingency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So the appraisal contingency is something that came up in a listing that Dwayne and I were working together. We have sellers in Jamaica Hills that had a home for sale, a single family that had been in the family for a long time, and they finally decided to sell. And this was just as we were getting into the shutdown, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
no, we were in the middle of it.
We
when
were
it-
in the middle of it. Yeah.
We had met with him, with the two brothers, in the beginning of February.
That's right.
But we didn't list it because they had work they had to do
Right.
until June.
No, it was March. March.
No, June 2nd.
Well, June we had already opened back up, hadn't we?
No,
Okay.
So
Oh yeah,
there's
yeah. You're
a-
right. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
There's
June
a COVID deal.
20 something, 21st, I think we.
Yeah, that's right. So we went in. Yeah, we listed in the middle of the shutdown, and we priced it attractively, and we were able to get lots of offers. We actually fielded over 10 offers, I believe.
I think, you
Yeah.
had 4 or 5. I had, I think
Wow.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of offers.
Our phones were just blowing
Yeah.
up, which was great. And we got the property under contract, well, almost under contract. We had an acceptable offer that was half signed. So the buyer had signed the contract, and it was headed back to the seller. And this was above asking price.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so
was 25 above asking
yeah, we were
price.
significantly
Okay.
above asking price already.
Uh-huh.
And we're literally hours away from having a fully executed contract signed by both parties.
Oh, yeah.
And another offer comes in, and we're representing the seller, right? So we represent the sellers of this property, and another offer comes in, which posed us actually with a problem. It sounds like it's ideal, but we actually had an issue here because the offer was so high that we were a little concerned that the deal might not appraise, that
Right.
it might not
Okay.
get appraised at value, at contract value.
Yep.
Which would then force the seller and the buyer to basically more or less renegotiate and come to some agreement on price
Yes.
since it didn't appraise. And we wanted to, and that was a risk
Mm-hmm.
because the buyer could have backed out of the deal if the language wasn't correct in the contract, or the seller could have sacrificed significant money
Yep.
if the language wasn't right in the contract. So Dwayne fielded that offer and suggested that we ask the buyer.
And this was 50,000 over asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were way over.
So the seller definitely would want to entertain that.
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, the seller was getting. I mean, this was a windfall for the seller. The seller was like,
And,
awesome.
and even when it's that much, you still are caught in this. And we always tell our sellers, yes, it is a lot more. You know, the flip side to it is that you do have to start over. So there's a risk factor.
There's a risk there
You
because we
will-
were going to have to kill a deal.
You will lose that buyer, and then you hope that they'll go all the way through.
yeah.
So
we had some.
Which was a challenge.
yes,
It
I mean, that
was.
challenge did occur.
yeah. But they wanted it. They went for it, right?
Yeah.
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 So we had a buyer, a committed buyer with a great agent that we had worked with that we were going to have to disappoint and upset by letting them know that we were going to kill their deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was unhappy.
And I think here is a good section to just address that, where I know sometimes consumers might think that it's us, like we have some malintention by doing this, and at the end of the day, we're just doing what's right for our client, who's
That's
the seller.
100% true.
You know,
So
fiduciary responsibilities.
Yeah, and
you
people-
can't turn away from that.
yeah, and people get really upset. Agents and buyers get understandably so, but we're just following the law.
And
right?
actually,
Yeah.
I want to digress really quickly just to emphasize what you're saying, because when I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about, okay, what's important about negotiating? And the first principle is understanding who you represent
That's
and
so
what your
true.
job is. And your job is to represent your client and only your client.
Yes.
Not the other side, not yourself. It's the client's interests, just like a
Yes.
lawyer. And I think that's something that strong negotiators understand and take and feel deep inside.
That's true.
And weaker negotiators simply either don't understand that as deeply or feel it as deeply. So we had a duty to our client to negotiate in their interest, which meant getting them more money. But we also needed to protect them in terms of getting them a deal that would actually go to closing. So those were the balancing factors that we had to negotiate, not only with our own client, but with the other sides.
Yep.
And so Dwayne had the unenviable duty of reaching out to the first deal and saying, you know, I'm really, really sorry, but we have another deal that's come in.
And I you know, just to be clear, like I called him before I called the sellers, you know, and I was like, listen, I need to let you know now that another offer came in and it's substantially higher. And you know, we are not in a fully executed contract. And they just signed the contract that
Yeah.
morning and they've been
Yeah.
sitting on it for
3 days.
almost a week.
Yeah, they've been sitting on it for a while.
And because they were trying to negotiate other things.
Sure.
So I mean, I told him, I said, I'm just letting you know, and I have to present it.
Yeah.
You know, I have to present it, and there's nothing I can do about it. If they accept it, they're going to, you know, that's
And they do always have the option of matching it.
right.
You
Sure.
know, I mean,
Right.
if you can match it, by all means, and we keep our deal. But this just changes everything
Right.
at that
and
moment.
and earlier in their price was about 5,000 lower than another offer.
Okay.
But this guy was really good. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
and so I said to him, look, if you come up that 5,000, you can get your guy come up 5,000. We're going to go with you.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So they came up to 5,000. They
Yeah.
were not interested in coming up to 25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And
it's-
finally, the last thing that we had to just make sure of was, okay, if we're going to kill one deal, we have to make sure that the other one is solid.
Yes.
And that is another aspect of negotiation. And so, you know, Dwayne and I consulted, and we consulted with the sellers, and we said, you know, we really think that we should stipulate that if we take this offer, the buyer has to take the appraisal contingency off the table.
Yes.
Because and just so that people know what that means is that if the property didn't appraise at the price that they were offering, that basically the buyer would agree that they're going to close on that property no matter what at that price. So
Yes.
they're going to have to come out of pocket for the additional amount.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, if you can do that, if you can negotiate, if you can say that you will waive the appraisal contingency, you've got yourself a deal, and we'll kill the other one. And our seller agreed that that was the right tactic
Sure.
to take, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
We had some little bumps along the way that made us hold our breath. Since then.
Okay.
But everything has. We're still
forward.
waiting to see.
Yeah, the second their appraised it appraised.
It appraised.
Which
Oh.
we were really happy
Oh,
about.
that's
right.
And
We were very
and-
surprised
And I
about
went
it.
back and I looked like, how did we get off so much?
Uh-huh.
Post COVID, there were some closings that
Oh, right after.
brought it up.
Nice. That's great.
So it worked.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Now, what happened though? The bank, for whatever reason, it appraised everything. We were waiting for the commitment, and the bank said, "We're not going to finance this."
Yeah.
Mm.
And like, I don't know if they bought a car or they did something to
Oh.
their credit or something,
Yeah.
but something changed when they ran the numbers
Yeah.
again that they
Sure.
said no.
Yeah.
And that's why you never, when you do go into contract and start your mortgage application, don't buy any, don't buy a new car, don't take on any new debts, don't mess with your credit at
Do
all.
not increase your debt at all.
At all, yeah.
Yeah.
And no
definitely.
major purchases.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But that's a good one, and I know for me, one of my least favorite parts of being an agent is when you get a substantially higher offer that your seller wants to take, and then you end up having to break the news and they aren't willing to match it, and the agent has been doing everything they have to, but at the end of the day, we have to follow the seller's instructions. And
Yeah.
if they want to take a higher offer, we have to be the bad guy. This to me, I feel like that's why we exist too.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a seller with a direct buyer going into contract and then they get a higher offer? That conversation for a seller, who wants to have that? Nobody.
Yeah, nobody.
That's
does.
why they hire us, and that's what we do.
You know, we-
we're the
we-
ones
we
that have
protect
to.
them.
Yeah.
And,
so,
and you know, it's a good example of mistakes in negotiation too. This particular deal that we're talking about, the original buyer, his agent made a mistake by allowing more negotiations to happen after we
sure.
already had an acceptable offer, because it delayed getting the contract signed.
yes.
If he had been smart, I mean, he was good. He was a great guy.
he was
really
really
smart.
good.
But I mean, he had to do what his clients want him to do as well.
Yes.
Right.
And I think he didn't. Maybe he didn't. I wasn't there for the conversations, but it's possible that maybe he didn't tell his clients, look, the faster you move towards contract,
Yeah.
the better, because until that's done, somebody else can come and grab this deal from you.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And so they attempted to reintroduce aspects of negotiation, which slowed things down, and that worked
Yeah.
against them. You know,
Yeah.
so when we are, you know, we have a very difficult job of balancing our clients' interests versus what's going to get them what they want, and
Yes.
that's always a balancing act.
Very true.
Excuse me, and it was something along like it was like minor fixes that they wanted the seller to do.
Right.
Oh,
Excuse me, and they they went back and forth for a week on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. They would have had a
true.
deal
Yeah.
had they not done that.
Yeah, no, it would have
true.
been signed by the time this
Yeah.
other offer came in.
yeah, that's true.
Well, guys, we've done 40 minutes. Do we want to talk a little bit more, or do we want to wrap things up?
I think we can why don't we give some tips?
Okay.
Let's go and
Some
give
quick
some
tips?
quick tips, negotiating tips for buyers, and then we'll go around and give some quick tips for
For
sellers.
sellers.
Yeah.
Okay.
For buyers.
Yeah, so let's give some quick tips for
Okay,
buyers.
George, go for it.
For me, okay, I think this is one for queens that I would give to buyers, and that is that, just because something looks unattractive at first, it doesn't mean that it should be. I look at it more as an opportunity than like I'm just gonna walk away. So let's say, for example, a property has an open violation. Let's say it has an open permit, or let's say there's tenants and that you have to buy it with the tenants. So things like that, most buyers would just walk away from it completely. But in my opinion, I look at that as this gives me leverage, and if I just need to do some due diligence. But if I can make this work, I might be able to actually get a discount on this property. So if something has an open violation or an open permit, just have an expediter that you can contact to get an idea of how much that'll cost to clear after closing. If there's tenants, are they paying? If they are, I want last 6 months of payment history. And if they're paying, that might not be, a bad idea. We bought our first property with a tenant. So different things I would just say as a buyer, don't get scared right away. If you see things that are out of the ordinary, that's where you need a good agent that can coach you
Yes.
through that. And it might turn into a good opportunity depending on the situation and, how much it'll cost to resolve and things like that. That's one for me.
Mine would be the chances of you finding the perfect property excuse me, is pretty slim. So if you get like 80% of what you're looking for in a property, you should be like making an offer on that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because you may not find that again,
And that happens. How many buyers have we seen that they're still coming to our open houses a year or two later
Yeah.
because they still haven't found
Yeah.
a place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my tip for buyers would be keep an open mind and remember that it's never just about price. keep an open mind, kind of like what you were saying. If you see something that you like, figure out what's important to you other than just the price.
Mm-hmm.
And always keep in mind what might be important to the seller other than price.
That's true.
And think and always be thinking, especially in a market that's competitive, always be thinking, how can I get myself ahead of all the other buyers?
Yes.
What can I negotiate with the seller that will get me ahead of all the other buyers? We have an ice cream truck going by.
Ice cream
Yeah.
man.
1 second. I'm going to go get a bomb pop.
I want a nutty buddy.
So, I mean, those would be my tips to buyers is, keep an open mind, go for what you want, and figure out what you can offer to make yourself attractive to the seller without selling the whole farm.
And there's
basically.
so many terms, too.
Yeah, there's
you can
so
get
many
really
things.
creative with this stuff.
And ask your agent. Ask your agent. This all starts with hiring the right agent. Let's say that.
Yeah,
Sure.
Because you gotta when you talk to an agent to be your buyer's agent, you gotta ask them what other things do you do besides haggling on price to
Yeah.
negotiate the deal. And if they sound like somebody that this person really understands a bunch of things that I've never even heard about,
Yes.
that can maybe help me get a deal. That's somebody that maybe you want to work with. And then once you are working with that person, ask them lots of questions and trust in them,
Yeah, I think a good agent, a sign of a good agent is when you're having a conversation with them, you're always learning something new.
Yeah,
that you didn't
100%.
know.
On that, I would have to say, as an personal aha was the question that Daniel said, what else does the buyer or the seller
yeah.
want? I was
Besides
yeah,
price.
that's a good
Because-
question. That's a
and-
good piece.
And as a listing agent, sometimes we do know that. We know, look, this owner is favoring a no mortgage contingency because they don't want to deal with any bank issues killing the loan. So that seller wants that. This seller wants a 120-day close because they want to look for their next place. So that's a good question, and a good listing agent will tell you, look, this is what they're looking for if you can get
Yeah.
your buyer to agree to it.
Providing that they're not giving away any
Yes,
information they shouldn't be giving away.
that's
Right.
true. Yeah, yeah.
So, but those things
All
are
right.
all in the interest of the seller. So, I mean,
Yes.
in those particular cases, I mean, that sounds like it's well within the fiduciary
Yeah.
duty. But
How about tips for sellers?
List with me.
Oh man, there's so many.
I can start. I mean,
Yeah, go for it.
One that I know is every once in a while we get sellers who they don't want to budge at all. They're just really stuck on a price, and sometimes, I mean, not even countering at full price kind of thing. And the only thing the advice I would give to homeowners or home sellers is that you can win your property back. So think of selling as an auction, and you can be the winning bidder.
Yeah.
You can win your property back. So, if you are serious about selling, then part of that is being reasonable. If you get an offer, is showing at least some sign of good faith, because that's
Yeah.
what that does.
Yeah.
Me and Abby, we also made an offer recently on another property. It was listed at $755. We made an offer, I think, of $725, and they countered back at $752. So goodbye. I don't
Yeah.
need to entertain this any longer.
Yeah.
You know
You
what?
can turn a buyer off so much like
So
that.
much.
A part of that is, and I guess this could be my tip to a seller, is your house is going to sell for what it is going to sell for. You could list it for $1. You could list it for $1 million. It's going to sell for what it's worth.
So true.
So I mean, it doesn't no pie in the sky. Your market is going to tell you what your property is worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my tip isn't to say you should price your house over market value so that you leave room for negotiating room.
So many buyers think that's like
Yeah.
a tactic.
Yeah.
Why would you? I always say to sellers, why would you ever want to negotiate down?
Yeah.
Why would you ever want to start from that mindset? Why would
Yeah.
you ever want to start yourself from the
Hey.
mindset of negotiating down?
Yeah, I think in my opinion is just make sure you're priced around the market value.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just even if you price above it, not too far.
Yeah.
Just be around there so you have a little bit of negotiating room, but you don't want to be so far out that people don't even consider it a realistic price. So
Yeah.
that would be my tip.
Yeah, and if you're priced too high, nobody's going to come see it.
That's
That's
right.
what happens.
You can't sell a house that doesn't get any offers.
Right.
That's what happens. That's true. All right, Dan, seller
Oh
tip.
man, I have so many, but I gotta limit myself. My seller tip, it's kind of related to what we've already been saying here, and that is that the buyer is not your enemy.
Ooh,
The other sellers are,
yes.
and you're not gonna get anything accomplished. The first thing in negotiating is understanding what you want to attract and what you want to avoid. And if you are a seller, you don't want to fight. Your job is to attract buyers. You're selling something. Your job is
Yeah.
to attract buyers, not push them away.
Yes.
And I see so many sellers who seem to be coming from the mindset of how can I extract the most from a buyer, or how can I get over on this buyer. It's more about what the buyer is losing or giving up
Yeah.
than it is what they're gaining, what the seller is gaining.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you're a seller, what you want to do is sell. So you gain by selling your property. You don't gain by trying to extract something out of a buyer.
Sure.
So the buyer is your friend. Yes, you want to
Yes.
you want to get the most you can for
And
your
you want a lot of friends.
exactly. You want
Yeah.
to get what you can for your property, and you want to do what's in your best interests.
Yeah.
But the buyer is not your enemy. The buyer is your friend. Your competition, the people that you're actually trying to compete against, are the other sellers.
Yes.
And sort of hand in hand with that is that you don't have any leverage until you have two offers, at least.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you have one offer, you have no basis for negotiating with that buyer other than just haggling over price.
Yeah.
Because there's no leverage for either party there. So
Sure.
you're basically just doing this.
At that point, it's just trying to find a win-win.
Exactly.
Try to come
Yep.
to an
The only
agreement.
way you get advantage as a seller in a situation is by pricing your property so that you get more than one offer.
Yeah.
And, when
for,
you
yeah, and I was gonna say, and for buyers, the way you get advantage in a negotiation is understanding the month supply in that neighborhood that you're in. Because
Yes.
if the month supply is in your favor, that means you probably are in a better position to negotiate, and you can be a little bit tougher when you
Exactly.
negotiate.
Well, and I tell you, as we're moving, as this shift is happening
Yeah.
from a seller's market to a buyer's market, the other sellers really are the enemy,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
because they're either going to buy their place or they're going to buy your
That's
place.
so
Exactly.
And you got to make your place as attractive as possible.
Yep.
Big time.
Yep.
All right.
So are those all the tips? Those
I
are all
think
the tips.
that's good,
Our
yeah, I
quick
mean-
tips were like 15 minutes worth of
I
tips.
think we dropped some jewels here. You know,
We definitely dropped some jewels, I think.
like Dan says, just peppering.
Yeah. Salt Bay.
Yeah,
Salt
yeah.
Bay, you know? That's right. That's what it is.
All right, so thank you guys. Thanks everybody. So Dan, thanks for being here
Absolutely.
today.
I love
D
it.
Weezy, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, George.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. We're publishing new episodes every month. So subscribe to the channel.
Yes, if it's on
you're-
YouTube,
Yeah,
yep.
if it's on YouTube, subscribe. And if it's on one of your podcast platforms, then subscribe also so you can
Yeah.
see every time we post a new episode.
And for you YouTubers, make sure you give it the thumbs up and hit the bell.
For notifications. All right, guys, y'all be good. Have a good September, and we'll see y'all next month.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.